All right, all you wonderful, brave men and women, welcome to Mission Critical Podcast, episode 10. If you're watching or listening to this podcast, remember, you are the resistance. All right, and on that note, I'm back over here. I should probably just do that as a sound file so I don't have to jump back and forth to where I'm playing that from. But hey, very seriously, welcome to episode 10. Yay, our 10th episode, Mission Critical Podcast with me, Mark, and
Redbeard,
Jeremy. This is episode 10.
Yeah.
We're tweaking it a little bit here. Again, as we're doing this, we're just knuckleheads and we're trying things out. And so we're sitting here talking, and we're going to start breaking. I may have already mentioned this. We're going to break episodes into chunks of 10. And then at the 10th episode, we are going to review the 9 previous episodes. So tonight's episode is going to be a review of the subjects we've spoken about to this date in time. And matter of fact, and today is the 30th of May, the day after Memorial Day 2023. And we're going to review everything. And we're going to add some additional comments. So, and I think what we're trying to do with that is to prove that we're not crazy, because you're going to see how much more has happened in the, in the 1 week, 1 to 3 weeks, 1 to 4 weeks since we actually talked about some of these other subjects.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing we're going to try a little differently here, boys and girls, is we're going to put housekeeping at the very end before our outro. So we'll try that here a little bit tonight. So without further ado, there, Jeremy, we're not even 2 minutes into it, and we're going to jump right into the meat of the subject, the heart of tonight's subject, which is reviewing the last 10 episodes.
That's correct.
And Jeremy and I talked about this a little bit. I'm going to start it off tonight, and what we're going to do is we're going to work from the beginning, and we're going to work to where we are now. So I'm going to actually start off on some of our earlier episodes, which I think is kind of the most interesting, because our earlier episodes, we had the introduction and kind of the big housekeeping episode, but then our first real episode was why are we still in NATO? And we did a part 2 to that. So we did 2 episodes of why are we still in NATO? So I want you, if you haven't watched those videos, go back and watch them again. And and then challenge yourself. Oh, they're full of crap. They're this, they're that. Now look where we are today. Some of, here, I can pull it up while we're talking here. Let me just do that. You can still see me. I can't see you guys, but here we go. And all right, so we did part 2. That was published on the 13th of May, right? So two weeks ago. It's been 2 weeks since part 2 of that video of why are we still in NATO? And here's the things that I want to bring out. I'm just going to bring out some bullet points, because I almost feel like we don't have to get into, serious, deep conversation, because it's so freaking obvious. And I also, because I know Redbeard's just chomping on the bit. There's so much. I had to stop him like dude, we're just talking on the phone. Don't do the podcast with me. I'm on your side. Let's save it for the podcast. But yeah, see, you just heard that noise he made. But here we go. Here are the notes that I have. Big picture things that I just want to talk about. The smallest, or yet one of the scariest thing, is NATO. Since we talked about why we are still in NATO and what is the purpose of NATO, NATO came out and it announced that it's opening an office in Asia. Asia, NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, Asia. Well, I guess you could maybe argue about the Aleutian Islands and something along those lines, but NATO in Asia seems to be a little bit of mission creep, and that's just the least of them. But I actually think that's actually one of the more troubling ones. But here, what else is going on that I think Jeremy really wants to expound on? I thought it was very interesting that, is that OMB? I'm not sure if that's OMB who actually handles that purse string, but it's, Department of Defense. But they suddenly found an additional $3 or $4 billion or whatever it was. Maybe it was $1 million. Maybe it was $4 million. Still a lot of freaking cash that they had earmarked for Ukraine, but they had, due to accounting errors, they didn't know that they had more money for Ukraine. So that seems really circumspect to me, because I don't know about you, I have a hard time mismanaging $3 or $4. I know exactly where every penny I have goes. I don't know about 3 or 4 million or billion, or $billion. And then the other thing I want to throw up about NATO, well, I actually say that was a Freudian slip. It does make me want to throw up. We're spending all this money and NATO countries, and the rhetoric, and I know Jeremy's going to talk about this, the rhetoric keeps getting amped up. And then there's the recent Lindsey Graham hot mic issue. But then on top of it, you have Ukraine, who is openly admitting that they're trying to assassinate Putin. And now they're conducting drone strikes in Moscow. So an escalation in this Ukrainian war and NATO involvement. And again, if that doesn't scare the living shit out of you, then you probably need to lay off the Quaaludes or whatever antidepressant you're on that's mellowed you out so much that you don't know when a grizzly bear is chewing off your leg. And on that note, I'm going to bring it over to Redbeard because I know he's got a whole bunch of more. So you get my point. I just spoke in broad strokes, and that just shows you how much more has taken place. And again, I'm skipping over so many other things. Nord Stream, there's more to talk about Nord Stream too, but that really kind of could also be in the should you trust your government segment of the videos we did. But Jeremy, I gave you a whole bunch of NATO cannon fodder, and I don't mean our men and women. So why don't you go ahead and take that?
Well, if we're not careful, it may just be our men and women, unfortunately.
Damn right. That was not a Freudian slip. That was an intentional use of the English language right there. I'm glad you picked up on it. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to kind of piggyback. There's a couple points that I want to make as it pertains to NATO. Now, with the shelling, the missile strikes, and the recent incursions by the Ukrainians into Russia, one of the towns in particular was actually a smaller town on the border with Russia and Ukraine. One of the biggest missteps I think that occurred there on behalf of both NATO and Ukraine was the fact that there was a shitload of U.S. Military equipment. And shortly after that, the United States is like, hey, guys, you're not, look, don't do this. Like, you're not supposed to bring this equipment into Russia. That was the agreement.
Hey, no, I couldn't help and resist this obvious joke. We're both wrong. That wasn't Ukrainian funding, and that's not even covert action type of operations, whatever you want to call that Bay of Pigs kind of fiasco. No, whoever did that probably just got it from the Afghanistan, from the Taliban. I mean, really, we've given the Taliban is big in the arms market now, given all the weapon systems we left behind. So I don't think that's our weapon systems that we supported to Ukraine. I think these freedom fighters and whatever that country is, they probably just got it from those other freedom fighters, the Taliban, don't you think?
Either way, the United States is not happy about it.
Come on, wasn't that kind of funny?
Yeah, well, it is because.
Or are you not laughing because that's actually only one step away from being true?
Well, I think in the grand scheme of things, Mark, yeah, it probably is true. And I think that the U.S. kind of has a black eye on this because they're realizing that their stuff is showing up in Russia, which is less than optimal.
You think?
And and I don't even think from just like a technological standpoint. I think they're worried about the fact that it's just U.S. stuff in Russia, which, I mean, I would probably be concerned about that too. And I would start to backtrack on a couple things and renege on a couple things myself. But, another update on that is now the United States and NATO is full-fledged into trying to send F-16s to Ukraine, which there's a lot to unpack there, but that will come in the future. Another point that I want to point out as well is the Russians have hit supposedly a couple different important areas. One of them was an airfield, which they, I don't know if their aims were to destroy aircraft or whatever the case might be, but they did hit supposedly another munitions depot. Now, this is drastic because NATO's been sending a ton of stuff over there. And we all know from the last several ammo depots they have hit, there is quite a substantial amount of NATO hardware in there. So it seems like, the Ukrainians keep saying like, oh, well, that wasn't, this wasn't critical. Well, you said the same thing about Bakhmut, but then you said it was let me see if I remember this. Bakhmut was a Ukrainian fortress that, if it fell, would determine the future of the war. And now they say it's not that big of a deal. So now you're seeing the same things with weapons, to where, oh, it really wasn't all of that. So it's like, okay, either way, you have to figure out what it's going to be. And if it is NATO weapons, I mean, think of how many depots they've hit.
Well, just hang on before you go too deep, because I think you and I know about it, and we already talk about it, and we've talked about it, a bunch of times. But if you're just watching this podcast and you really aren't following too much, so Jeremy's point, there's been a series of munitions depots, ammo dumps, if you want to call them that, throughout Ukraine, that the Russians have struck and they've destroyed. And to the point I want to make on that, and I think Jeremy is just unintentionally glossing over it because he gets it, and we've talked about this, but the two things that have come up in our conversations, one of those dumps was full of Patriot missiles, and if you look at the dollar amount, right, the cost benefit ratio here, it's like, so one Russian, cruise missile worth X amount of dollars, just for the sake of math, call it, $500,000, or let's just call it $1 million, right? Just keep it simple, stupid. It's $1 million. It hits an ammo depot and it destroys 50 to 100, whether it's Tomahawks or whether it's, Patriots, whatever the missile platform was. But each of those themselves is worth $10 million. See what I'm getting at? I mean, like, okay. Through a war of attrition, we just lost a shit ton of money, and that takes time and money to replace. So that's a great return on your investment. If you're Russia, spend $1 million, hit that weapon depot, and now your allies just lost $1 billion. That's a pretty good return on investment. So that's one thing. But then the other point, Jeremy, I thought you were going to bring this up, and maybe I interrupted too soon. So I'll just mention it, and then you can respond to this. But one of those weapons, so there was this thing, if anyone remembers seeing this in the news, and then it wasn't in the news. It was this argument about depleted uranium. And so one of the depot. Okay, do you want to talk about that then? Because in essence, we just had a poor man's, like a dirty bomb go off. And and depending on the size and the scales and how much truth and reporting, because I don't think we can really, on the West, really look and say there's a lot of truth and reporting coming out about what's going on, transpiring in Ukraine. But if that's true, and if that depot was destroyed and all that depleted uranium, and look, and it's not the same thing, radiological devices, But there's going to be an issue here, right? You want to talk about that, Jeremy? Was that one of your things?
Yeah, no, and I think it's very, very relevant to the NATO situation, because we have to remember that the UK provided these depleted uranium rounds, which was a very substantial shipment, mind you. And the Russians had actually, and it's not taking a side, but it's the Russians had brought up the idea that if depleted rounds were used in the quantities that they had suspected were being shipped, that it would have some level of detrimental, detracting issues when it came to the ground in Ukraine. Well, they sent them anyways. So this is one of those things to where, well, it's not technically a Geneva Convention thing. It's still less than optimal, because there are drawbacks to using depleted uranium as it pertains to semi-long-term effects. And we're not talking on the level of Chernobyl, but we're talking several years.
And this isn't a desert battle. Look, so there's ecological impacts, like, throughout, the Middle East, where we've been having some of these conflicts, but those are, low population density areas. There's already, it's a desert. So, how much ecological damage are you going to do? Whereas Ukraine, very high population density, very different type of, vegetation. So there is the environmental impact. But I think, and the reason I wanted to chime in when you brought this up is I was going to say it's also the ladder of escalation. So, if Jeremy and I are throwing punches and we agree, the rules of the fight was we just throw punches, right? And we don't hit below the belt, and we don't eye gouge, and we don't do, MMA and no kicks, stuff like that. And then Jeremy like sneaks in a freaking, a kick to my thigh, or, or boxes my ears, or whatever, or, see where I'm going, or puts me in a submission hold. Well, now
I just lost all picture and everything on my side.
Yeah. So. You're good on mine. By the way, we were already getting messed with in our phone call prior to starting this, and now
Yeah,
to hear
can't
that
even make a
happening.
basic phone
I'm
call
not
anymore.
surprised in the least bit. It's because we're talking about this stuff. But so I don't know. Could you still hear me though, Jeremy?
No, I couldn't hear anything. Everything went black and all your audio cut out. So
okay, on my side, and that's the side that's recording, it looked like everything was okay. So maybe we're good on that. But to the point I was just making is the ladder of escalation. Did you hear the thing I was saying? If you and I had agreed to a fight and we both said it was just going to be fists, and then if one of us broke the rules and then threw in a chokehold or a kick in there, did you hear that part?
No, but I kind of figured out what you're leading up to.
Yeah, so that's the analogy, right? You know, so there's a rule.
Right.
I mean, there's rules to warfare. I know that sounds weird, but there really are. But all I was trying to say, to your point, I was excited when you were going to bring this up, because to me, it's the ladder of escalation, right? It's the escalation of conflict. This is exactly it. If you're going to start bringing in depleted uranium, well, then maybe I'm going to start using fuel air explosives. And then where does this go? Where does it end? I mean, and if you're going to start doing that, well, then I'm going to start using thermobaric. Well, then I'm going to start doing, instead of just, basic precision guided munitions and basic artillery, I'm going to start using, why not a tactical nuke at that time? A battlefield. You see where I'm going? Like this is what happens. Well, and to Jeremy's point, now I'm going to start flying in F-16s. Okay, well then I'm going to start bringing in, my SU, what is it, 35 or their latest.
Yeah, SU 35s and 37s are
there. So like, and there, where does it end? Well, then if we're going to go down that road, well then why not strategic bombing?
Right. Well, and so to that point, that is something that is been somewhat considered. Now, Mark, being somebody who was in the military during, the Cold War era, the 80s and whatnot, right? There's I'm sure you guys are pretty well aware of the strategic bombers for Russia. They're freaking huge. They're the Tu-95s, I think, the Tupolev 95s.
Well, they've got a bunch of them, but yeah.
Oh yeah, tons of them. And it's like I will say the Russians have a really big knack for getting the biggest payloads they possibly can in a platform. And it's to be fair, it's terrifying. I hope that we don't see the escalation to where they start to use something like that, because I mean, there's no end to something. Like once you start to, as you're talking with that realm of escalation, where does it end? Well, it doesn't end. That's the problem, is it doesn't end. And so
it can end. With the nuclear holocaust. I mean, that's where it could end, but it could go all the way up to that point. Yes.
Right. And so I think the primary point here regarding NATO, Ukraine, Russia, and especially as it pertains to the Taiwan and China, right? Like the thing of it is we're seeing extremely provocative actions being taken by an organization that in my personal opinion, and we've talked about this, I think they're completely out of their depth in terms of what they're doing. They're going not only way beyond their reach and their capabilities at this point, but they're going halfway across the world, basically, is what it seems like, to get intertwined in a conflict that has nothing to do with NATO. At most, it's the SPTO, the South Pacific Treaty Organization, which isn't even a thing, but I'm sure it will be by the end of this year if it keeps going the way that it's going. This is not good for anybody, because it has been said before by, unfortunately, individuals within our government. Yeah, we could fight a two-front war. Nobody can fight a two-front war successfully. It does not happen. There's a reason that nations that have fought two-front wars have typically lost, because you're talking about and you brought up a great point, a level of attrition that is unsustainable. It's not desirable. So I think those are the pertinent updates. Is look, there's clearly escalation taking place here, and it's not good for anybody involved. And I think as we look at our economies, I think as we start to look at a lot of other resource issues and stuff like that, I think that may push some of these countries over the edge to get involved to justify a consolidation of resources and other things. So
Well, and on that point,
yeah.
and because then I'm just got one thing to say, give you a last comments, and then we'll wrap up on NATO and move to the next subject. But I just forgot about two other things. So, and these are very recent within the last just few days.
Sure.
Is now the current administration is trying to pressure Turkey. And I thought we weren't in for tit for tat. I thought it wasn't, you know, a quid pro quo. I thought that was illegal to do. But anyway, but now it's a quid pro quo. Hey, Turkey, if you want more advanced weaponry, then you have to do more to get, you know, to support the NATO mission and get other people to go along with the NATO mission. In other words, you need to get in line and do what we're all saying to do, or everybody's agreeing to do, Ukraine, and be a better partner in that, or we're not going to give you some of the more, you know, like F-16s. We're not going to, we're not going to sell you as much stuff anymore. If, you know, now that Erdogan just won again, you know,
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
That just makes me wonder what we don't know behind the scenes. So that was one point. But the other point though, Jeremy, is, and again, this kind of goes into the next, well, actually the third subject, which is, can you trust the government? But I just got to throw it out there because it does pertain to NATO. It pertains to the situation at hand. And that's Lindsey Graham's, like, just totally unbelievable comments.
Volatile.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so how about this? We're at 21 minutes. Why don't you wrap it up if you want to address the Lindsey Graham? Otherwise, we can bring him in 2 sections from now when we talk about trusting the government.
No, look, it's fairly simple, right? Like, basically, you know, and granted, I understand I'm going to be mildly paraphrasing here, but you can look it up for yourselves. Basically, dead Russians are a great investment, according to Lindsey Graham.
No, it's the best use of American tax dollars ever.
Right. Yeah. And to be fair, like, it might be a great investment for the U.S. government and for NATO, but it's not for anybody else.
Well, I don't understand how that's an investment of our tax dollars. Like, that's not a good investment of our tax dollars. No. Infrastructure, education, you know, law enforcement, you know, see, we could do. So here, I'm gonna use my gavel. I think we're at to start figuring this out too. I get one gavel an episode. I'm using my gavel because otherwise that NATO Ukraine thing is going to consume the whole hour. And I'll just tell everybody this right now. If you think we're cutting it short, it's because we are. And in the next 10 episodes, we will be coming back to Ukraine and NATO because there's just so much to unpack there.
And with China as well.
Oh my gosh. See how he's already doing it to me? I said, let's move on. And now he's he's like, he's dangling a carrot in front of my mouth. Ooh, let's talk about China. And I start salivating and like,
you just brought up food, man.
Yeah, well, you know, okay. All right. Hey, so here we go. We're moving on. We're going to try to keep this brisk. So the next section I wanted to talk about, Redbeard, is, so this was episode 4, and it was government healthcare. Like, we used the VA as a model, or, you know, as you will, a lens or a point of intersection into the larger question of, do you want government healthcare? And by using the VA to, you know, extrapolating from my personal experiences and from some things out there that most people should know about, we use that as a model and say, well, that's what you get over here. The one place where it should work seamlessly and perfectly for, because I thought we cared about our veterans. And then, you know, shared some personal stories. So there's 3 things I want to bring up on that, and then I'll turn it over to Jeremy. I'm going to save the best for last here. So I'm going to screw the first one up a little bit, but let's look at New York City, Adams kicking. Now, because there's an issue.
Oh, I know where you're going.
No, hang on before you say it. But I'm not giving him a defense. I'm just saying this because it raises a bigger issue about how we treat veterans or people with mental health issues or homelessness in America. We've created a system, and there's smarter people than I have talked about this. We've created a system in which if we really cared, we really would be doing something. Having a home, like, let's say this was a homeless shelter for veterans, and having the taxpayers pay for this and keep it open 24 hours a day, but not having any way to incentivize or motivate the veteran to actually be here so they can come and go. So imagine that. Like, that's not a good return on your investment. If this facility is sitting 70% vacant 90% of the year, but you're paying, you see what I'm getting at? So that's one thing. And he kicked everybody out for illegal aliens. Right. And that's what they are. And look, and I don't care where you think. I'm not condemning people from, you know, Mexico or Latin America or South America or Central America. That's not the point at all. So don't call me a racist. That's bullshit. Look, the terms are simple. Entering this country improperly is called
Yeah.
illegal. That's called illegal. When you do it against the rules, that's illegal. And anyone who's outside of your borders is an alien. You know,
Right.
I don't, it's the other people trying to change the language so we actually lose
Right.
focus with the laws. But when you then evict veterans and put them on the street so you can have people entering the country illegally who aren't part of this country, AKA that's also known as illegal aliens, that is a huge freaking issue. So that's what you're going to get, because that's what's happening to the people the men and women we're supposed to take care of. So that's my first point. Second point, my personal story. So since we did that episode, I've had some VA experiences, and I don't even want to bore you with it. I'm just going to tell you, it just continues to sadden me, because I'm sitting in front of this person. And not ever once was there a question about, well, how did that last appointment go, or what's going? It was all about, let's look at your meds. It's always about just wanting to give me new meds. And that's what happened. They wanted to pull me out. They pulled me off a med, put me on a new med. So that was just a 1-for-1 exchange. The similar meds, you know, that work in the same family of medications. And then a different med they wanted me to stop so they could give me a different type of med that they hoped would help with these I've got these weird chesty, muscle crampy. We don't know what the hell it is. Well, we don't know because we're not actually testing to see what it is. We're just throwing drugs at it. And so I didn't even take the second one yet until I get a chance to talk to my actual civilian physician, because like they wanted, I'm like, I don't think I should be off of that med. Something tells me that's wrong. So I've got to make that my point of order, you know, this week to call them. But the other one that they swapped just made me dizzy. And I was on it for a week, and I was so dizzy and just discombobulated. I'm just like, that's it. I'm done with this thing. And I haven't been dizzy since. So, and that's different for everybody. I know, I personally now know through my last, 3 or 5 years of dealing with this, that I'm not very good with a lot of meds. A lot of meds do make me dizzy. So, but anyway, to the point, my point on this isn't the woe is me. It's I can't even get people to actually talk to me, my physicians, to talk to me about what's actually wrong with it. It's like, we don't want to talk about that. Let's only talk about medication, which then goes in trusting your government. It's like, well, why are we only talking about medication? My point, again, I got to make a tinfoil hat. Big pharma, that's what everybody's being pushed to, like, just give everybody drugs because everybody keeps making money off of that. And then my last thing, Jeremy, before I turn over to Redbeard for his kind of additions to this, is I'm sure most of you have seen it, and it's that poor gentleman, a vet, pulled over to the side of the road, and I watched it with my friend Big Spoon. I'd seen it earlier, and I showed it to him, and he said, "Wow, that guy's going to have a breakdown." I'm like, "No, you are witnessing a human being having a breakdown right in front of you. That man is having a breakdown, and that guy was just so beside himself. Whoever you are." Excuse me a second. See, I just got choked up. I'm not joking. I almost just like, that guy is just wrecked. He is just so distraught and so sad. And whoever you are, I hope you're still alive. And I hope you're finding people around you, friends, family, somebody in the community somewhere. And I hope you are able to talk to somebody, but none of that solves his problem. And he makes it clear what the problem is. The problem is, like, it's the damn healthcare, the VA healthcare system, and and having to start at square one every time, and it's just a horrible thing. And if I can find the YouTube video, now I've seen it in some other places. If I find the video, I'll have the link in here down below. But if you just look at what that guy's emotional state and what he's going through, you think that that's the rarity? You think that is like, oh, okay, 1 out of 1,000 times somebody slips through the cracks. I'm just telling you, I've got a bridge to nowhere I'm willing to sell you. So, all right, that was episode 4. So bringing that back. And so those were, from my perspective, those were 3 things to add to since we shot that episode. Jeremy, what do you got to add or take away from that?
Yeah, no, I just, I mean, I'm going to kind of let your stuff stand because I think it's very relevant. The only thing I'm going to add from my point of view, Mark, is the fact that what we have is a system that is no longer about actually preventative stuff or mitigation. There's no money to be made. There's morals that can come into play, but there's no money to be made. Morality is not profitable. You can't have a good moral behavior and make a profit, at least in my opinion, at this juncture, as it pertains to this, right? So if you're not pushing pills, like if that doctor is not like, hey, Mark, like we got this great miracle drug for you and it's going to fix all of your problems. And it's basically like, I don't know. this is just rambling, but it's like, but it's methamphetamine, right? Like, and they're just like, hey, but this is not what it is. It's like this. And it's like, and you know, and so the thing of it is right, like they don't care what it is. They will literally
hey, Mark, here's oxycodone. Oh, hold it. Hang on. Time out. What? Yeah. Or here is fentanyl. Hold it. What the fuck did you just say? You want to give me fentanyl? And no, not just no, but hell no. So,
and people can research this all they want, but if you don't think that they don't go through, relabel something with no change to it whatsoever and resell it to you, you're absolutely out of control. It does happen. Like in the end of the day, the best piece of advice that I can give you in terms of healthcare at this point is eat right, get fit, take care of yourself before you have to end up in an institution that most likely doesn't give a shit about you. And that's not saying that there are not good people out there. But like I told Mark before we did this today, I also think that there's a realm of delusion to where you think, to where people think that, oh, like it's a few bad apples. We are past the point of a few bad apples. That's a horseshit excuse. Like we literally have to just admit the fact that like, look, there are good people in the system. Unfortunately, if they haven't left already, they're going to be fired. It's the prevailing, and that's not being negative. It's you have to realize the problem in order to fix the problem. And if we're not going to be at that point, then we need to stop complaining about the problem because it's obviously not bad enough. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
Well, I'm just going to add one last thing to it. Well, two things. One is a little bit not housekeeping, but so we will definitely revisit this. Maybe not in this next 10 episodes, but there's just too much going on here. And this is of such importance. I believe it's of such importance that we 100%. Will have another episode about VA healthcare and government run healthcare. Then my final thing though, and like, so just sharing something with you, the viewers, you know, hey, I'm trying to be better in front of the camera. I'm trying to be a little bit more open. Sometimes, you know, I'm a human being. You heard me just get all choked up about that video. But on that note, so Jeremy already knows, like, so I'm wearing a hat that has been with me in all the shitty places I've ever been in the world. Yeah. Well, for the agency, not the military. Well, actually it did come a couple places in the military, but I've had this hat for a very long time. This is the last, matter of fact, it's not the last episode. This is the last moment I'm wearing it because I really do hope that vet from that video, and not just him, but all my other brothers and sisters who are suffering through the same crisis and the same level of healthcare, you know, in action, and what that does to your already, you know, potentially frail mental state. And, you know, because not everybody gets blown up. I mean, you know, we can all get destroyed in different ways, and that shit is real. So I actually said I wasn't going to wear this hat anymore because this has been in so many places. I didn't want to start wearing it down, you know, because that's what happens to hats over time, right? You wear them too long, they get beat down. So I'm retiring this guy, and well, I'll put him up here for right now. He's going to go where Darth Vader is in a second because I want him to replace Darth Vader because I think because just like Darth Vader had an arc and he was able to redeem himself, I really hope the VA can redeem themselves. So he's going to take the place of Darth Vader, and maybe I'll put that hat on if I ever have a beer with, you know, whoever's watching this in person or whatever. But otherwise, that hat's going to reside up there from here on out. All right, I think that wraps up government healthcare.
That's a good somber point you just did there.
Okay. Good. All right, we're at almost 35 minutes. I actually didn't say 3.
Where did you go?
For anybody who's watched all of our videos, like you know, I've for whatever reason, I see it in front of me in the monitor in the screen, and I always interpret it as like, you know, instead of an hour and 10, I'm like, oh, it's been a minute and 10.
Look, ladies and gentlemen, this is groundbreaking. Okay, I don't know if y'all know this or not, but this is a big deal. You know, first off, Mark, congratulations. Hey,
thanks
I'll
to
drink
me.
to that.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Hey, so I'm going to call an audible if you're okay with this, Jeremy, because again, we're at 35 minutes and we still have housekeeping to do at the end. I'm going to save episode 6 and 7 because I think we have way more to talk about there. That's the, can you trust the government? I think let's just really quickly review RFK Jr. and dirty civilians. And Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I make one thing here real quick?
Sure.
So
no, you're not a part of this podcast.
Yeah, I know.
No, you can't do anything.
It's a natural thing. You know, it's customs and courtesies.
Yeah, what are you trying to be polite? What the hell, dude?
But no, just for y'all to take a look into it, there's a new piece of legislation that's being drafted, and this is kind of going into the can you trust your government, but it's important. There's a new piece of legislation that's being drafted.
Do you want to hold that for when we talk about trusting the government, or is that because I think we can skim through RFK and dirty civilians and then spend, because I want to give us at least 15 minutes on trusting the government.
I mean, that's fine.
Okay.
So it's kind of a big deal. So if we get to it, great. If not,
how about when we come over to trusting the government? You just start right there then.
Yep. Okay. Perfect.
All right. So then here, real quickly, RFK Jr. I don't really have much to add. I think, a bunch of people left some really good comments, and I really appreciate the whole Chappaquiddick comment, that's not RFK Jr., but it's the Kennedy family. Right. But I really don't think, in my perspective, I have much to add. I think I still stand, behind what I stated in that video, which is I just don't trust the guy, period.
Yeah.
Is there anything new to add? Has he said anything groundbreaking or anything since then?
Look, if he has, nobody knows about it because he never gets any spotlight. In my opinion, look, if the guy's saying something, I want to hear it because, I want to hear what the guy has to say. That being said, Mark, I'm very much in the same boat to where I would go a step further to where I don't trust any of them, and I think you concur with that. I don't give a shit if it's Trump. I don't give a shit if it's, whoever it is. Yeah. To me, they are not infallible. They are extremely fallible. They are extremely disposed because when you get to a position of power of becoming corrupt. And I think that, in the end of the day, look, we need to get away from the cult of personality. But we can also, provide some semblance of coverage or at least do our due diligence as it pertains to these people, right? I think in the very least.
At the end of the day, I think the way when you just started saying that, what came to my mind is we need to clean house. We need to be in charge of our own house. And this is, boys and girls, this is our house.
And that's not just in voting.
This is our house. This country is ours. This is our country. It doesn't belong to the fat cats in Washington.
Or the bureaucrats,
Yeah, well, those cats too, whatever you want to call them. All right, moving on. Dirty civilians. I'm going to skim over this one because, again, inside baseball, we are going to do part 2. I'm still working on our guest, former Army Ranger, still in the military today. We're hopefully going to shoot that on Thursday. So I don't have anything to add to that because we still got one more episode to do on it. And I think the next one's going to be pretty freaking good too. So I've got nothing to add on that, Jeremy, for the 10 episodes in review segment here. What do you got?
No, the only thing that I'm going to put forth is what I always kind of come back to is look, go out, train, work out, eat right, do things for yourself, be a capable individual. And, I will forever continue to say that on just about every single episode because it needs to be absolutely pounded. It's a point that needs to be driven into the ground. Right. So that's my thing is look, if you want to be that difference, you have to start being about that difference. Otherwise it doesn't matter. Simply just talking about stuff is not, it's not enough. So
that was you dropping a bomb on it. Okay. Then we're going to move into the final segment of our review video, our last 10 episodes in review. And that's going to be the section where we, so this was a 2-part episode we called it, Can You Trust the Government? So this was episode 6 and episode 7. So Jeremy, again, training to standards, not to time, but we're at almost 40 minutes.
We're actually
probably about 5 to 10 minutes of housekeeping tonight. And so, so here's what I'm just going to say. I'm going to leave this over to you. And you've got your main thing that I kind of stopped you from saying. So you got to start with that. My only points to that, to add to everybody's thought process. Again, the intent of doing these review videos is to discuss everything that's happened since we did the video. So if you thought we were crazy and then I come and provide more evidence, well, am I crazy or maybe you just with your head in the sand? So since we did episode 6 and 7, here's my little list. And I only wrote down the 4 big ones that I could just pull out of my brain in 3 seconds before we started shooting this video. Jeffrey Epstein, because there's more that's come out about Jeffrey Epstein as it pertains to both the client list and Bill Gates and a whole bunch of other people. There's even a rumor now that somebody is, or that the client list has been leaked. I haven't seen that yet, so I'm going to tiptoe around that a little bit.
Yep.
Then I want to talk about whistleblowers. There's been a ton of whistleblowers that have come out who have actually, you know, they're the whistleblowers, and they are saying a lot of the same things Jeremy and I were talking about. One of the big ones that I just think the most fascinating is, you know, the guy, well, one whistleblower then disappears, you know, out of fear. I mean, which could have been fake. I totally get that. That could have been an operation. But then the guy, you know, coming out and talking about, you know, the big guy getting $5 million while he was vice president. And then my favorite one though, because it's just so unique to me, or it's so interesting to me, is, you know, can you trust the government? We've had 2 what I think are incredibly obvious false flag type of operations. Unfortunately, you know, violence is involved in these things. But, you know, last I checked, you know, Hispanic guys don't go walking around with swastikas, freshly tattooed swastikas. And the last I checked, anyone in law enforcement, you know, and if you're in the federal government, you're an 18 series, and you're not a sheriff or a local municipal cop. You're a federal law enforcement. You're an 18 series. Last I checked, I don't think anyone's trained that right then and there at the point, you know, of the crime scene. You know, before anything, you just start laying things out on the ground for all the photographers to see. That's really not how you process evidence. The last I checked, but I don't know. I mean, I'm not an 18 series, so
contaminating the crime scene, for fuck's sake, too. Jeez.
Yeah. So, you know, so it just begs the question: can you really trust it? I mean, like, there have been, and see, boys and girls, I'm laughing because I can't even do justice to all the things that have happened since then, and all the lies that everybody's been busted with. Like, so here, you know, just here's, I've got this little printout thing I'm starting to do, you know, like, you know, here's the press secretary. These are our kids. They belong to all of us, you know. Okay.
That's terrifying.
Yeah. That's terrifying. The end of free speech. I will end America. You know, like, so there's a bunch of good articles. Now there's one, Jeremy, if you allow me, we're at 42 minutes.
Yep. Oh yeah, we're doing good.
I'm not going to read, you and I talked about, should I read some of these or not? I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to point everybody to the article, let them do the reading. I will try to get this link into the video itself, but it's from Zero Hedge, which Zero Hedge is a financial online periodical, but they do a lot of, I don't really want to call it conservative. It's more realism. And so I'm a realist, and that's an actual term. I mean, that's a school of thought. Anyway, so and for international security studies, you know, I had the focus was on realism. And so this Victor David Hansen piece out of Zero Hedge. So Zero Hedge will have a lot more geopolitical and domestic political commentary, but it's a great article, and it's titled "Indict One ... and all." And his whole premise is like, okay, everybody's, you know, saying Trump did all these things, and, you know, and then he lays out what people think those things are. And as a matter of fact, instead of reading the 20 examples, I'll just read the thing he says before. He says, such asymmetry also raises questions about the equal application of our laws as they apply to all our other officials, current and out of office. Or to put it another way, what crime did Trump not do that others did with either impunity or without being arrested? Right. So that's his whole point. He's got a 20 piece, and he lists out 20 things that Trump did that he got in trouble for. But that I'm sure that Trump did not do that other people did, and nothing happened to them. And it's a damning list. I'll try to make that article down below. Jeremy, I'm going to bring you full screen and try to figure out what happened to my light. But I know you've got some things to say about, can we trust the government, and whether, you know, I guess we're all being told now that, you know, black people are white nationalists or something. I mean, you see what I'm saying? You know, well, you know, that kind of stuff.
And I think it also merits to point out too, Mark, that if you also instruct the government to investigate itself, surprisingly, they're not going to find any wrongdoing. I don't know if you knew that or not, but typically there's simply nothing that can be wrong. I will say, off of your point regarding that article, it's not saying also, at least from how I interpreted it, it's also not saying that like if Trump did do something legitimately wrong, that's excusable. It's not excusable 100%. Like if there's something that's legitimately like he did wrong, then yes, he needs to be held accountable and needs to answer for those things. But the point I think that the article kind of conveys, if I'm getting this right, is look, if we're going to do this level of investigation, if we're going to get people on shit that they've done wrong, then it's applicable to every single person. It's not singular to one person or another. Like you can't have these excuses as to like, oh, well, like they were under some blah, 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 blah. Like, I don't even care if it was like under some secret squirrel shit, right? Like the end of the day, like, look, you're culpable, or at least you were involved to some degree in some manner of criminal activity or whatever. If that's the case, then you need to be brought forth, put on trial, and dealt with accordingly. Like,
and to the point, so I'll read one of the 20 things that this author references, and so it's number 18. So bear with me a quick second. I'm reading it verbatim from the article. Trump did not, as did private citizen and former Secretary of State John Kerry, meet clandestinely while out of office with Iranian officials to help them resist current U.S. policy towards Iran, or what the Boston Globe characterized as unusual shadow diplomacy to apply pressure on the Trump administration from the outside. Trump never did that, but John Kerry did. Like, so in my world, like, look, that it was clandestine. It was a secret meeting. It is working outside of the realm of the current administration. Look, when I, as a citizen, or when I was in the agency or in uniform, whoever the commander in chief is, well, guess what? Well, those are the orders I'm going to follow, as long as they're lawful orders. You know, if somebody tells me to kill kids or something, like, you know, I can disobey that all day long, right? But what John Kerry did is straight up. I mean, like, okay, you could maybe make an argument. Is it sedition? Is it treason? You know, okay, I'm not a constitutional scholar, lawyer. I mean, you would have to be to look into that, but it definitely falls in one of those realms, right? And here's the one I will speak to, though. So here's number 11. Well, here's 10 and 11. Trump did not, unlike Joe Biden, remove presidential papers without any authority to declassify them. And that's a huge difference there. Trump did not, unlike Joe Biden, remove presidential papers without any authority to declassify them and leave them scattered and unsecured in a garage and various residences and offices. Trump didn't do that, but Biden did. Trump had all the authority in the world. So see over on Centerline Systems, we talk about handling, you know, classified information. That's a world that's very dear to me because I had to do it, and I did it. You know, it's a serious freaking thing. And then the final one, again, I'm not even reading all of them, but to Jeremy's point, and these really stand out to me, Trump did not, as did the FBI, wipe clean subpoenaed mobile phone records. Think Hillary Clinton. I mean, like, I could go, and that's in the list too. Like, things that if I would have done them as an employee of the CIA, you know, when I was an operations officer, as I said in that previous video, the best case scenario, I would have lost my security clearance and been fired and never been allowed to operate in the intelligence community ever again. That would have been the least form of punishment I could have suffered. Well, I mean, here's other people that are like, these are rules and regulations, laws, and people have violated them and nothing has happened to them since, right? So back to that, you think you can trust your government? Well, I guess depends on if there's a D or an R or who you vote for, or, you know, well, or if you're a useful idiot and they're willing to put up with you now, but you'll be the first people behind the woodshed once the revolution is over. So, what else, Jeremy? I know you got a couple things that the government's done since then.
So there's actually one thing in particular that I'm going to bring up that I was going to bring up earlier. It's called the Federal Digital Platform Commission Act of 2023. This is something you all should look into. Essentially, the language in this gives way to we're looking at things like behavior codes, policing and controlling every website, which I understand that people might make the argument, well, they already do that. You don't understand. Like, this is a very, very, this goes a lot deeper than that, up to finding what you say, and launching investigations. We're also looking at where the government would have full access to every website or social media platform without any form of basically recourse by people. This is basically opening Pandora's box as it pertains to the internet, social media, stuff like that, because basically they'll have carte blanche to do whatever they want, and basically have control over your media platform. So, you know, we're looking at very, very dangerous territory. I mean, yes, they already watch stuff. Yes, they already, you know, build investigations off of things. I understand that, but this goes to a far deeper level, a far more insidious level, to where now there's going to even be far greater ramifications if something like this goes through. You're talking about them legitimately controlling every aspect of it, up to and including your own website. So if you're a business owner and there's certain things that perhaps that they don't find as being tasteful or within whatever, then guess what? This allows them to go in and mess around with your website. And you know, if there's something that's out of sorts or whatever the case might be, or like it says, being able to find what you say. Think about that. Think about that. If you go on and you say something and it's less than desirable, you could be receiving a fine in the mail, or a fine to whatever. And it's like, look, this is a serious, real world piece of legislation that's being proposed. So
central bank digital currency is going to be tied in with all of that right there.
Oh, 100%. Well, and that goes off of the behavior codes.
Yeah.
So, Mark, I'm pretty sure you probably have an idea of what I'm talking about when I bring up behavior codes, you know? So it's like,
well, look, so now we're kind of doing a completely, I mean, we could do it. We should maybe do a podcast on this, but let's just even use us as an example, like a behavior code. Look, we talked about this in the previous episode. I'm sure we'll talk about it more, but like, there's obviously things going on within this world, this realm, this digital realm, you know, of YouTube and social media, whether that's Instagram, Rumble, YouTube, Google, however you want to, whatever you want to put underneath that umbrella, aka social media. But those codes are already there, and we're already seeing it, experiencing it from our end, and we're just a bunch of knuckleheads just trying to have a conversation. So, you know, imagine what happens when you really start getting the attention of the powers to be and how much they can look. It's already affecting my business. I mean, it's clear. So I've got to start, but I guess to your point, you know, being solution oriented, well, then I've got to get off my ass and find different places to start advertising my business, or finding different places where I can express, you know, I can actually exercise my First Amendment right and express myself. So, you know, but Jeremy, maybe let's sidebar that, because maybe that should be somewhere in the next 10 episodes, because that is an episode all by itself right there, sir.
Exactly.
Okay.
But the biggest thing is, like, I would highly encourage that people look into this, because it's and if you're not sure what it's saying, there are a number of resources. I believe actually Chris Ann Hall might have gone over this, but like that's what she did. She was a constitutional attorney. She knows how to interpret documents through a constitutional purview and break it down to where it makes sense. So if you're not understanding it, I would put some money on it that she did cover this in one of her podcasts as well, in her episodes. So be on the lookout for that. Her and her husband this is what they do. They sift through this stuff, so you don't necessarily have to, and break it down in a way that's understandable. So highly recommend that, as well as the 10th Amendment Center.
Well, you know, and so let's sidebar that too, because we should start putting some of these links in the bottom of the videos, because what I really liked about Jeremy, like, I don't know the people he's talking about. I haven't looked at, and I haven't gone to any of their sites and seen what they're about and the information they're providing either. But that's what the point is. It's incumbent upon us to do our own research. Unfortunately, you know, if you're burning, like, you know, there's only two ends to a candle, but if I'm burning, well, calendars are a candle's a cylinder, and I'm burning the whole thing at once. I'm burning, you know, all the surface area at the same time. So some of us, it's just reality. We don't have the time in our days to do this. So, you know, kind of jumping into housekeeping, but thanks to everybody who watches these videos. And again, I mean it serious. 100%. You are the resistance, and you have to share this. You have to leave comments. It's the only way we're ever going to get better as a people, as individuals, as a society, whatever it is. But Jeremy, on that note, I think we should find a couple of these things. We can talk offline about this, and then we should maybe always have those in the narrative for our videos. You know, things that are worthy. Hey, so I've got one more Audible to call with you. This isn't a gavel. I only get one gavel, so this is an Audible. You can call Audibles too. We're at 55 minutes. I do want to kind of wrap this up. I mean, we got a little bit of housekeeping 100%. And the outro, but as we were sitting here talking, you know, in my whole list of notes and everything, and I just found this, and with it being Memorial Weekend, with your permission, I just kind of want to read a quick poem for two reasons. It was Memorial Day yesterday. I did a post over on Centerline Systems last week. I don't ever post on holidays, like whether I don't care what it is, because it's a holiday. You shouldn't be on social media. You know, so I usually post a day or two before. And mine was kind of like I described some of the interactions I'd had earlier that day as it pertained to Memorial Day. You know, when I said some things to people, and people actually laughed at some of the things I said. And it's like, what do you? That's not funny. It's Memorial Weekend. What are you talking about? So with your permission, here's my Audible. I want to read this poem because it pertains to Memorial Day, but also it goes to what you were just talking about. And it goes to the point of, can you really trust the government? So if you're okay, this will take about 2 minutes. Can I do it? Okay. I just want to set the stage why I'm reading this and why I had printed this out. It's a classic poem. Many of you might recognize it right off the bat, but it goes to, can you really trust your government? So if you think of like a period in humanity when not just one government, but many governments totally got it wrong. And hey, the people who weren't fighting and dying, they don't give a shit because they're not fighting and dying, right? So it's by Wilfred Owen. It's called Dulce et Decorum, or Dulce et Decorum Est. All right. This is about World War I. And go back to what we were just talking about, where Ukraine and some of these other places could take us, right? And it isn't going to be the people in power going and fighting. It's going to be the me and you, or our children, or our cousins, our brothers and sisters fighting, right? World War I. Here, I'll put it up like this so I can kind of see. Well, no, I got to read, so it doesn't matter. Bent double like old beggars under sacks, knock-kneed, coughing like hags, we cursed through the sludge, till on the haunting flares we turned our backs, and towards our distant rest began to trudge. Men marched asleep, many had lost their boots, but limped on, bloodshot. All went lame, all blind, drunk with fatigue, deaf even to the hoots of gas shells dropping softly behind. Gas, gas, quick, boys! An ecstasy of fumbling, fighting the clumsy helmets just in time. But someone was still yelling out and stumbling, and floundering round like a man in fire or lime. Dim through the misty panes and thick green light, under a green sea, I saw him drowning. In all my dreams before my helpless sight, he plunges at me, guttering, choking, drowning. If in some smothering dream you too could pace behind the wagon that we flung him in, and watch the white eyes writhing in his face, his hanging face like a devil's sack of sin, if you could hear at every jolt the blood come gargling from the froth-corrupted lungs, obscene as cancer, bitter as the cud of vile, incurable sores on innocent tongues, my friend, you would not tell with such high zest to children ardent for some desperate glory the old lie, dulce et decorum est pro patria mori. You can't trust, and of all times, I don't know where this just came from, but I had to read it because of that VA thing, you know, we just talked about, you know, the, you know, government healthcare, that poor veteran, everything that's going on in Ukraine, NATO expansionism, you know, like, and can you trust your government? And it was just Memorial Weekend, right? Which is to honor our fallen dead. Are we going to ever fallen, you know, honor the men and women who've fallen under such horrendous circumstances as, you know, recent events, all, you know, but World War I, and we're going to do that by what? Continuing the forever wars, or continuing to elect this rotting bag of, what did someone call them, of rotting bag of oatmeal? I mean, like, we have got to, each and every one of us, we've got to wake the F up, plain and simple. And I guess I'm going to use that to segue into the housekeeping. We got to wake up. We all have to start speaking out. You know,
Yeah.
I tried to take some time off this weekend. It was Memorial Weekend. Unfortunately, my health conditions got so bad that I packed out at 4 a.m. on Sunday because I couldn't sleep. I was in a shit ton of pain. I was about an hour and a half away from where I lived. And for about an hour, I was doing breathing exercises to try to control the pain that was going through my body. So when somebody wants to tell me that I should pay more taxes or government health care is what we all need, or I should just shut up and listen to the doctor telling me, you know, trying to give me another drug without explaining why, or even knowing what's really wrong with me, or, you know, when, you know, Lindsey Graham says this is the best, you know, use of American tax dollars in the history of American tax dollars. I'm pretty pissed off, and I'm not going to take anymore. And that's why we're doing this. So that's kind of part of the housekeeping. That is why we're doing this podcast. And I hope you, whoever you are watching this, again, you've heard me say it. I'm going to say it one more time. I don't care your sexual orientation. I don't care your skin color, your religious preference. I don't care your heritage. I don't care about any of that stuff. Democrat, Republican. Do you or do you not believe in freedom? Period. And if you do, then please come on over here. If you don't believe in freedom, come over here and tell us why we're wrong. Tell us why history will judge us poorly and not you. Then come on over and do that. All right, Jeremy, I got a little bit emotional there for a second, but you got something to say, or should I just shut up and go into housekeeping?
So I actually want to just point out that, like, you think about that poem, and you know, as you were sitting there reading it, Mark, like I could visualize every single thing that was going on there. Like it was just basically like it was putting through like this image of sheer chaos, right?
It's
like
horrific.
just like there is just nothing. And I'll say it this way: there is nothing desirable about that, right? Like when we think of things that are desirable, we think of like a cake. We think of, you know, time with family. We think of like a perfect vacation. We don't think of like warfare. And I just want to put this out there. If you don't think that your government is not disposed to using chemical weapons, nuclear weapons, biological weapons, or anything that should be, in my opinion, should be absolutely done away with, because no rational person ever wants any of that shit to be around. You know, if you don't think your government's not disposed to doing that, then I would suggest looking at World War I. I would suggest looking at World War II. I would suggest looking at the many deceptions and lies that led us to certain points there. Because in the end of the day, like, you know, it's like it's justification for this meat grinder mentality that is war. There's like one of the greatest things I've heard was there is no winner in war. And there isn't. There's no winner in war.
Actually, I disagree. There is a winner in war. It's the people who make the weapons of war. I mean, take it all the way back to the Rothschilds. I mean, take it all the way back to the Rothschilds in the Napoleonic era. I mean, there's winners in war. I mean, and I'm not picking on Boeing or Lockheed Martin or Raytheon or any of those guys.
I would. You know? Fuck those people.
But I'm just, okay. Yeah. I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm also just, okay.
Like,
touche, sir.
You know, to me, it's one of those things to where like no rational person should wake up in the morning and being like, yeah, it's a good day to wage a war. You know, like there's nobody that should ever be in the state of mind to where you're pro-war. Like I guarantee you, and Mark, I think we kind of touched on this when we talked on the phone, like how many veterans do you know that are just like, yeah, no, that was a good time. Let's go back and do that shit all over again. You know, more veterans, I think a lot of people have kind of come back, and maybe you can speak to this, but there's quite a few veterans that come back and are now anti-war because they're like, no, yeah, that's not, that's a less than optimal way of doing things.
Well, and I'm glad you kind of put it in those conditions. And then let's come back to that. Maybe that'll be another podcast where we will get some people from the Forever Wars on, and we'll talk about that.
Dude,
because like, war itself is a horrible thing, right? But you know, again, now quoting another poem, but it's not the worst of things, right? You know, there are, you know, things like the degrade. Well, again, I'm kind of quoting a poem, but the degrade and decayed state of morality in the world today,
and
right?
that factors into
So yeah, like you know, some of my best experiences were in the war zones, right? But it wasn't best, like you said, it was because of the people and this brings out the best and worst in all of us. And you know, you really just meet some incredible fucking human beings. Not all of them are Americans, right? You know, I've met some, you know, but then you look at, and, you know, I guess to your point, I mean, but it's always like the powers that be that always are the ones that let us down, you know, and I had, unfortunately, too many of those conversations over the weekend with my friends, you know, talking about, you know, our experiences and where we were and remember him and, you know, and, you know, so, you know, right over my shoulder and, you know, stuff like that. So but let's save that for another time. So sorry, I think I'm the one who took us down this kind of dour, you know, path. I apologize, everyone, but we were talking about, can you trust the government? And with it being just on the heels of Memorial Day, I don't think I could help myself there. So I do apologize. All right, Jeremy, with your permission, unless you got one more thing to say about that, I'm going to go into housekeeping.
No, that was a good way to end it off. So let's do housekeeping and wrap it up.
All right. Housekeeping is a little bit different this time. So first and foremost, so here, we'll talk about this. So this is the Marshall Hardware hoodie. I'm wearing it right now. You don't win this one. This one's mine. But we do have a winner. You're trying to say they do win my hoodie? Like, no, this is my hoodie, Jeremy.
Oh, no.
So you're pointing over at my neck. No. We will have a brand new hoodie in your size. Yeah. Don't listen to Jeremy. He is wrong on this one. Now, let me just pull up.
Gotta be your hoodie in your size.
All right. So Jeremy and I talked. Jeremy, I talked over you. What did you say, sir?
I said, you'll fight somebody over that hoodie.
Oh, I'm not giving up this hoodie. I mean, look, I'm not much of a fight now. I can barely move. I was telling someone the other day, like 6 4-year-olds could kick my ass right now. I'm not thinking. So. All right. Okay. But here we go, though. So the contest winner is, he responded 7 days ago to the contest. It was a great response. I think we should leave it up. Well, anyone can go to episode 7 and read his
dude, it was dialed in.
Yep. So it's Rob Mac 151. Now, so I'm not looking at myself in the camera here. Let me come back over to us. So Rob Mac 151, you are the winner of a
way to go, man.
Marshall Hardware hoodie. I'm going to send you. So I'll respond to that message once we're done with this video. I'll respond to your message directly. And I'm going to ask you, you can respond back via YouTube, but I'm going to ask you to respond to my email and Centerline Systems. And then we can communicate securely offline, get your shipping information, tell me your size. I already have the, you know, that's the hoodie right there. It's a free hoodie. So I'll just go and cash that in and and get the size and everything you want. And I'll drop it in the mail for you. So Rob Mac 151. Great.
Way to go, man.
Yep. Way to go. Thank you, sir. Here, here's to you. He's got coffee. I'm actually having a mixed drink. So, all right. So thanks, Rob Mac 151. And then on that note, though, to everyone else, a huge shout out and thanks. You guys are really, really leaving some great comments, but I'm curious.
You guys are killing it.
Yeah, but Jeremy, I'm curious, and you tell me, are we doing the contest wrong? Because we've had 2 contests now giving away free gear. And in both cases, only one person actually addressed the contest. So either we need to do the housekeeping at the very end. So if people start learning that we're doing, you know, a contest in the housekeeping, and then maybe we need to make it, instead of trying to be neat and tricky and putting it somewhere in the middle of the podcast, maybe we need to put it at the very end so people can, maybe they get bored or they just can't handle the glory of our beards. And they're just like, it's too much. I can't watch an hour of this. And they fast forward to the end and try to win the contest.
Yeah. Well, you know, anything's possible. This is, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so so housekeeping, that's what we're going to probably do. We're going to probably put housekeeping to the end of every episode going forward. And then as far as going forward is concerned, because we really like having the guests, that's been really fun for me and Jeremy. And, you know, we're not getting paid. We're doing this for fun. Right. And I like bringing on the other guests. Jeremy likes bringing on the other guests.
Yep.
That's really difficult to do. So the one way that we've come up with, and we'll try it for the next 10 episodes. So again, we're going to be doing episodes in blocks of 10. and then a review at the 10th episode, and then and just evaluate where we are and then make adjustments and do 10 more episodes. So for the next 10 episodes anyway, we're going to only do episodes on Tuesdays, maybe once every 3 weeks. And that's going to be kind of an audible from Jeremy and myself, like, oh, hey, this is so important, we've got to do it. In other words, what I'm really trying to say is we're only going to do episodes on Thursdays, and we're going to always try to have a guest for all of our episodes.
Yeah.
With the exception of the review episode, like we're doing right now, that'll probably be on Tuesday, and that'll be just Jeremy and myself. Or if there's something just so groundbreaking that we can't be quiet about it, then we'll do Tuesdays. Otherwise, we're looking at Thursdays. And the other thing though is too, so after we shoot these videos, I've got to, render the video and upload everything. So that's also going to make it more timely, because there's been a time lag in the past, but last weekend, I accelerated some things to get us on the schedule. So after this video tonight, so it's Tuesday, the 30th of May, I'll start rendering it immediately. And this will actually go live Wednesday. Yeah, that's correct. This will go live Wednesday. And then, but our Thursday video will go live Friday. So at the end of this week, it'll be a new video every Friday. So you'll have the whole weekend to sit and enjoy it, pour yourself an adult cocktail, or, pull a red beard and watch it while you're eating breakfast, drinking coffee, whatever. Right. And so that's a little bit of housekeeping. I feel like I'm missing one thing, Jeremy. It was the sequence, what we're going to do, the giveaway. What was the other thing I missed? I'm missing something in housekeeping. What am I missing? Do you remember? I didn't write that down in my notes. Of all the things.
I don't know. Yep. See, two knuckleheads, everybody. Like, oh yeah, we got this. We partially, I will say, we partially have to plan this out, but everything in terms of commentary is, we'll have our talking points, but everything usually, once we delve into those talking points, is fair game. As far as actually remembering half the shit that we try to remember, well, that's another story.
But in our defense, we take notes, we talk about things. I actually think I mentally blew past this. I'm like, oh, I'll remember that. That's easy. Easy. And now I'm like, no, I know there was a third thing for housekeeping. I can't remember what the hell it is. So I'm just going to say, oh, what is that over there? And then run away real quickly,
just black.
All right, well, that's housekeeping then, Jeremy. Then that's it. I'm done on housekeeping. So again,
all right.
Rob Mac 151, you're the winner of an awesome summer Marshall Hardware hoodie. I'll be sending you a message, trying to reach out to you and communicate. If you're watching this video and you don't see a message, then something went wrong, but reach out to us. You can always get me at mark@center-line-systems. The email's on my website as well, which is CLS Gear, or that's Charlie Lima Sierra Gear, CLSgear.com. There's two different ways to contact me via the website, but we want to reach out to you. Oh, Jeremy, that's what it was right there. Pete. So the winner from the first one, I don't think we ever announced that. He gave us a camera, but he's also the winner. I mean, and that has nothing to do with the camera. Those were two completely different events. So so he cashed in, and he's going to get one of that was the first one where I gave away a piece of Centerline Systems gear.
Great job to him also.
And then I added one of our EDC belt pouches to his order.
Awesome.
He had ordered something anyway. But so yeah, he won. He was the first winner. That's what I forgot. And that's why I kept coming to why am I saying contact me at Centerline Systems? But that's what it was, because he ended up contacting me that way, and then like, hey, you're the winner. But the point is in both of those contests, only two people, one person per contest ever provided answers, and God bless both of them. They gave great answers, really thought out, really detailed. Really appreciate that. Appreciate all the comments people have got.
100%.
But if you seriously, well, here, I'll just kind of give a sneak peek. So we're going to do two more giveaways. And if these things fail, I mean, if no one wants to get free gear, then I'm going to stop spending my money to give you free gear. So the next giveaway is going to be two cool pieces of EDC gear. This is like a little EDC mat for your wallet, your gun, your knife, whatever. And I've got two of them right over there. And then, but I'm also going to throw the smaller little one, which goes into like an Altoids tin. So this will be a giveaway. And this comes from CountyCom. I think I've mentioned them over at Centerline Systems. I'll hold off on mentioning them until we do this. But this is a cool little giveaway right here.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, and it gets best. And then we might have to do this one when we do Dirty Civilian, Jeremy. I'm just saying. And maybe if you're watching this video, maybe you're queuing in on when you should be paying attention. But this is a great giveaway. a T5 custom Kydex. That's the company, T5 custom Kydex. Can you see that? Yeah, that should show up pretty good.
Yeah. Yep.
Inside the waistband with a sidecar.
Yeah.
The whole 9 yards. It's a Glock, 9mm holster. Great freaking holsters. I own, I don't own this. You're going to own it, whoever the winner is. I own 2 of them, their holsters. So
what model of Glock, by the way?
17, okay, 19. Yep.
Okay, 17, perfect.
19. Yep.
I just wanted to put that out there so if somebody, so people know too, because
so the Glock guys will watch that, whatever that episode is. Not sure which one it's going to be. Although, hint, hint, wink, wink, it's probably going to be on the next Dirty Civilian episode. So, just saying, just on that. So, but after this, I'm not going to spend any more of my money if people don't like the contest or don't want to win free gear.
I mean, honestly, I have my own holster, but that rubber or that EDC thing there, especially with the Altoids tin thing, dude, that's fire. That's awesome.
Well, I can probably hook you up. I did maybe buy more than I. Well, it's like, when your eyes are bigger than your stomach and you're like, so, I did make sure I took care of myself. I got mine, but I do have some extras. I'm sure I could hook you up with more.
Are you saying you may have done a bulk buy on accident?
I may have, what is that? It's 12 o'clock at night. You're on your second, vodka tonic and you shouldn't be in front of the computer. And the next thing you know, you're buying. Yeah, maybe. I'm not saying that is what happened. I'm saying I've heard that happens from time to time with some people. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's been known to come and go.
All right, so we got 2 more. You just saw the price. So that's the final little bit of housekeeping. So again, huge shout out to Paul. Huge shout out to, and I already kind of screwed it up, to Rob Mac 151. Yep, huge shout out to you guys. You are a winner so far. We got 2 more prizes, and we'll just see how it goes. And if we only get one person vying for a prize every time, I mean, well, God bless that one person. It really increases your odds of winning.
Yeah, right.
You're the only person who participates. Yeah. So
100% guarantee you're going to win.
Yeah. 100% of the time you will win 100% of the time. Exactly.
We're going to have repeat offenders at this point, just like dude, it's the same 2 guys.
Well, no, see, we're going to set a rule right now. You can't win it twice. You can,
there you go. Yep.
Yeah, but no, we got to keep, spreading the wealth. We can't have the same person win every time, right? So, all right, so that's a rule right there. So that concludes housekeeping. We're having a little bit of fun at the very end here. I know Jeremy's going to take us out. I've got no final comments other than just I really do hope that everybody had a fun, great, but a little bit of solemnity, a little bit of solemnness in the weekend. And I hope you raised your glass to our honored dead and contemplated on that. And, and I know we always kind of reference that as our military dead, but in my humble opinion, like if you think about our military dead, the men and women who died so we could be here and enjoying that barbecue, but then I would also say in the future, then use that as a way to also think about those other people that you love who have their own anniversaries, their own dates, on this day, whatever, but use that as your own vehicle to also remember, like, oh yeah, I'm thinking about all the men and women who died, so I have this right. Yeah. But that reminds me, 2 months from now, that's when my uncle died. He really meant something to me, and I'm going to make sure I do something special this year. So that's my closing right there, sir.
Yep. Yeah, and to that point, I also want to make a point, and Mark, you'll probably like this, but just remember that this is a very important day, not only to remember the military dead, or like Mark said, but to also remember that in securing this country, not all these people were military. They were militia. They were Minutemen. They were the average person that took an interest in defending what was right. So it's not just these municipalities or these organizations that can do good. We need to remember the average person that goes forth and potentially gives their life for the sake of their community. I don't believe in pedestaling people to a degree to where there's a superiority. Look, there's people every single day that give their lives to save people from a burning building or to interdict in a violent attack or whatever, and you never hear about it. And so I want to
or just what about all the hundreds of men and women who will put their own lives at risk to go find some hiker or climber, or somebody who either did something really stupid or had the bad luck of, Mother Nature biting them in the, and tons of people,
everyday heroes,
some of them die trying to just save somebody else. You're absolutely right, sir.
100%. Right. Like we need to recognize the people again, yeah, like within our communities, that they don't wear a uniform, they don't have a badge, they don't have special authorization to go do cool guy shit. They take what they have in and of themselves and do the right fucking thing. And I think those people deserve every bit of Memorial Day right alongside everybody else, in my opinion. So, all right,
I'm raising. I agree with you. I'm raising my glass to that one. Hey, you've got an outro to do after you take a sip.
Yep. Oh, and it tastes so good. And on that case, everybody, I just want to put this out there in our outro, as I always do. The flame of liberty shall not and will not ever be extinguished, so long as there are good people that will support it and defend it forever. So on that note, Mark, I think it's a heck of a way to end.
You got it, sir. All right, everybody. We will see you on the next podcast, which we're going to shoot on Thursday. It'll air on Friday. And then after that, we're going to just do Thursdays, and Tuesdays will be filler as we deem fit.
Yep. All right.
All right, Jeremy. Hey, honestly, I just want to say this here before I hit end recording. I'm going to say this to you. It's been 10 episodes now, and I really appreciate you know, you kind of raising the subject. I remember who even brought it up, but whatever. I've been having a shit ton of fun with you doing this, and I really appreciate you putting up with my bullshit. Hopefully you'll do it for 10 more episodes.
Yeah, I'm dude. I'm looking at 100 at this point, so we'll see. We'll ride the lightning and see what happens.
There we go. So, all right, everybody. We'll see you on the next one. Thank you, everybody. Take care. Woo!